Hello, everyone. Uh, what can I say? It's definitely great to be back after a long break. I really didn't expect it to go for this long than I expected. So I guess you can kind of say, with that being said, certainly welcome to another episode of Nick Files. I haven't really done a episode now for, geez, about almost 2 months now. I think the last one I did was back in November. So it definitely had been a while. I've kind of been somewhat tight. Hang on one second. Just before I continue onwards, let me just give a few shout outs quickly to everybody. What's up, Eric? Good to see you. And yeah, Jeremy, I did call you earlier, and well, I'll explain what's going on in just a moment. But like I said, reason why it's been taking so long for me to get back to doing Nick Files lately is because I've had a lot of commitments that have been going on for the last few weeks, not just when we have the holidays, but on certain things. I've also been trying to put together a new audiobook series that I've been working on. So it's really taken a lot of my time to really try to put these slideshows together. So, but now that I'm halfway through with the project, that does give me a little time now to finally have a chance to start working on some slideshows. And in this case, what we're going to be talking about tonight is going to be one of them. So tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about the true story of the Enfield haunting case, or the Enfield poltergeist case, as it's more called. I did have a problem, and Jeremy, this is what to answer your question now. I because this week I've had such a very tight schedule with work, and not blaming the other shows, but all these other shows that I've been on uh, throughout. Well, just yesterday, and other calls I had to take. Unfortunately, I really didn't get to have a lot of time to really put this slideshow together. I mean, literally. I mean, I started a little bit of this last night, and um, I got through most of it this for today, but it's not even halfway done. I mean, I was really rushing to try to get at least half of it done, and unfortunately, that was just not the case. So I went as fast as I could. I do have some of it. Um, I'm as crazy as it's going to sound. I'm kind of a little bit glad that I was able to go a little later than expected. I know I said originally 5 o'clock, but once 5 o'clock hit, I realized I didn't have enough time to really have the slideshow ready. What's going on, Nigel? Good to see you. So, um, yeah, yeah, I know, Jeremy. I thought about taking another week, but I really wanted to try to get the show back on because I know a lot of people, a number of folks were asking about when Nick Files was coming back. So, but either way, I do have at least, as for what I have right now for the current slideshow, I only have about 10 slides on it currently, but each of these slides do contain quite enough information that will definitely last for the portion of the show. Of course, I won't go as fast as sometimes I usually do with a lot of these bigger slideshows. So, um, there is a possibility because again I was working on it so fast. I didn't even really get to have a chance to really get a lot of photographs on the true case. So in that, if worse comes to worse, there may be most likely a chance I may just have to restart this slideshow, just like if I get more information or photographs on it. So but either way, we'll give this a shot and see how this works out, because again I've been wanting to do this for a while now. So let's see how much we can get through. So give me one second. And oh, and also I almost forgot. Let me get the because once from this point on, for those that don't know, I always make this announcement for every time I broadcast this is every time I broadcast this, unfortunately, it's just I can't see the comments when I'm doing these slideshows, unfortunately. So oh, and just checking from some of the other pages. Martin, good to see you. Glad, really appreciate you tuning in. Okay, so I got the chat ready in case anybody asks any questions. Okay, now I always got to do this. This is always the fun part. All right, so oh wait, let me just make sure this is working correctly. All right, there we go. All right, so with that, as I just mentioned earlier, so tonight's topic will be talking about the true story of the Enfield haunting. Now, unlike most of these other cases that I usually do on normal occasions, I normally have usually history sections on these slideshows, but this is definitely it's going to be one of the few cases where, because there's not very much history to what really exactly happened on the property of this house, other than the investigation and the evidence that they managed to find, we're just going straight into the haunting. I mean, we're just jumping right to the chase. So, with that, with that, we'll get started. How it all began. On the evening of Tuesday, August 30th, 1977, Peggy Hodgson, a 47-year-old divorced mother of four, heard loud noises coming from her daughter's bedroom at 284 Green. It's supposed to be Green Street. See, I didn't even have enough time to really work out the mistypes, so I do apologize for some of the mistypes. So, coming from her daughter's bedroom at her 284 Green Street in Enfield, London, England. When she went into her children's bedroom to tell them to stop fighting and go to sleep, she found them huddled in the corner with terrified expressions on their faces. They were complaining that the bed was shaking, but thinking no more of it, she went to bed. We told our mom the chest of drawers was moving towards the bedroom door. Jada recalled while speaking on ITV in 2012. She said, "Don't be silly." What's up, Jill? Good to see you. The next night, she heard a shuffling noise like someone walking about on the linoleum in slippers, and then four loud knocks. A chest of drawers slid across the floor. Peggy pushed it back and slid forward in the direction of the door by a seemingly invisible force, almost as if some supernatural presence was trying to trap the girls in the room. She tried to push it back, but couldn't as it wouldn't budge. Terrified, the family fled and ran across the street to ask for help from their neighbors, Vic and Petty Nottingham at 282 Green Street, and asked. Oh, okay. I got another one of those repeats there, so I'm gonna have to fix that up after I'm done with tonight. Thinking someone was pulling a prank, they called the Metropolitan Police, who came out to the house at 1 a.m. The police checked the walls, attic, and pipes, but could find nothing to explain the tapping. One of the police officers, a woman constable, reported witnessing a chair wobble and slide, but could not determine the cause of the movements. She also said the PC and the neighbors all went into the kitchen to check the refrigerator pipes, etc., leaving the family and myself in the living room. The lights in the living room were switched off again, and within a few minutes, the eldest son pointed to a chair that was standing next to the sofa. I looked at the chair and noticed that it was wobbling. Oh, I guess it does. Okay, it looks like, again, some of that repeating parts again. That it was wobbling slightly from side to side. I then saw the chair slide across the floor towards the kitchen wall. It moved approximately 3 to 4 feet and then came to rest. Later claims included disembodied voices, loud noises, thrown toys, and overturned chairs, and even children levitating. They deduced that it was not a police matter. According to the family, that was just the beginning of what would become their nearly 18-month haunting. While some called it a hoax, others considered it to be one of the speaking of loud noises, um, while some called it a hoax, others consider it to be one of the most witnessed cases of supernatural activity to date. Just want to keep an eye on the time. Like I said, this might end pretty shortly because again, I just could not get enough time to put a lot of these slides in. Next week, definitely I'll have more. The next night, Vic went back to the house to investigate. He too said he heard strange noises coming from around the home and was attacked with a flying Lego. Jeez. You know, those Legos may be small, but I've heard though, you throw them, especially the larger ones, that can actually quite hurt. Marbles and Lego flew around the house for the next 3 days, and various people visited in an effort to help, including members of the council and clergy. At a loss as what to do. On September 4th, Mrs. Nottingham called the Daily Mirror, hoping that they could do something to help. The Mirror sent reporter Douglas Bentz and photographer Graham Morris, which, strange enough, I was trying to search for them earlier today, and unless I'm looking at the wrong places, I have not found any photographs of either one of them. Again, if I find any additions for this slideshow, I'll definitely add them for next week. But when he arrived, the house sat silent for hours. It wasn't until the reporter was about to leave that something happened. Graham Morris later said, "I thought it was an ordinary job until I walked into the house. I stood in the gloom in the kitchen, and one by one they brought the children into the adults' arms. And the last one to come in was Janet. Suddenly things just took off and started flying around the room. I got hit by a Lego brick over my right eye. It gave me a lump for a few days. There was a fair bit of force. There were marbles and things left in the kitchen that were just flying around the room. I was watching all of the family, and none of them was doing anything." Oh, that came in. That came in a little bit early. Yeah, they both did. The photographer came back and okay, it says this again. He still had a mark. Oh wait, this was when okay, this now I understand. The photographer came back and a Lego brick hit him above the eye. He still had the mark for a few days. And then Maurice Gross came in on the case, Janet said, according to the Daily Mail. George Follows, a senior reporter at the Mirror, and photographer David Thorpe visited the house. Follows believed at first that Peggy was playing tricks in order to get a new council house, but he soon realized that something serious was going on. Because of the emotional atmosphere at the house and in the neighborhood, ranging from hysteria through terror to excitement and tension, it has been difficult to record satisfactory data. Nevertheless, I am satisfied the overall impression of our investigation is reasonably accurate. To the best of our ability, we have eliminated the possibility of total trickery, although we have been able to simulate most of the phenomena. In my opinion, this faking could only be done by an expert. Now, this is where the pictures should have actually showed up. Follows suggested contacting the Society for Psychical Research, SPR. He was put in contact with Maurice Gross, a relatively new member of the society who had joined after the death of his daughter the year before. Gross visited the house on Monday, September 5th. Gross said of that first visit, "I found chaos. The whole family was congregated in the house together with the neighbors next door. And there were a lot of very, very frightened people there." During his stay at the house, Gross has said he witnessed more than 2,000 different incidents of supernatural activity. Over the period of 18 months, more than 30 people, including the Hodgson's neighbors, psychic researchers, and journalists, said they variously saw heavy furniture moving of its own accord, objects being thrown across the room. Yeah, see, again, it's like the same thing. And the sisters seeming to levitate several feet off the ground. Gross and the members of the press waited to witness any incidents. And on Wednesday, September 8th, at 1:15 a.m., they rushed into the children's bedroom after hearing a loud crash. The two sisters, 11-year-old Janet and 13-year-old Margaret, were still asleep, but a chair had flipped over and moved a meter across the room. This was enough to convince Maurice to stay and investigate further. How are you, Mort? I see you in the chat there. Good to see you. On September 10th, the Daily Mirror broke the story, describing it as the House of Strange Happenings. Later that evening, Peggy appeared on a radio program called Nightline on LBC, a London radio station. When Peggy arrived home after the show, she was greeted by the BBC's Roz Morris from the Radio 4 show, The World This Weekend. You know, just to make a quick pause there for a second. Once again, like I always do on many occasions, I tried looking for this radio program that Peggy was on, as well as I don't know if she was actually interviewed in this case by Roz Morris, but I tried looking earlier to see if there was like any audio or footage of this case. I know there is an actual news footage film that does exist, which unfortunately, again, I didn't have enough time to really put it in. I didn't even decide exactly where it was going to be, but I will be eventually including that footage in. But as far as these two media appearances, if you want to call it that way, I wasn't able to find it, unfortunately. All right, so Roz joined Gross on an all-night vigil and also witnessed some paranormal activity. After the girls went to bed, so this is just him speaking. Okay. After the girls went to bed, there was a very loud crash upstairs in their bedroom. Wait a minute. Is that okay? All right then. Sorry, I thought it was the same thing. Roz joined Gross on an all-night vigil and also witnessed some paranormal activity. After the girls went to bed, there was a very loud crash upstairs in their bedroom. Something chucked the chair across the room. I'm convinced of that. Gross also saw flying marbles, jumping teaspoons in boxes, and a sofa that rose into the air and crashed down on the floor upside down. Gross was among several people to witness these events. Again, it's showing some. See, again, if I only had a little bit of that, of this extra time to put this together, I would have been able to detect these parts here that are kind of repeating themselves. So yeah, there's probably a good chance I may have to restart this for next week. We'll see. Gross and the photographer rigged up a camera that took photos when triggered and managed to capture Janet being thrown from her bed. Realizing that he was out of his depth, Gross asked the SPR for help in investigating the poltergeist. Guy Playfair accepted the request and arrived at the house on September 12th. And this right here, guys, this is an actual photograph of supposedly Janet being thrown from her bed. There are a few other pictures out there that are considered more famous and notorious. In fact, some of these pictures would later end up being put on the credits for the second Conjuring movie. I don't know if they included this one. I don't really remember, but this is just the first of several photographs that were taken. Unfortunately, again, I don't have those as of right now. I know they are available, but like I said, I'll be adding those later. So, but it's a good start, at least. Interestingly enough, Guy Playfair later wrote the book, This House is Haunted, the true story of the Enfield poltergeist, which was by White Crow Books in 1980. The family were chased out of the house on Sunday, September 25th, and sought refuge with Peggy's brother who lived up the road. While his wife Sylvia made some tea, a Lego brick appeared in front of her and dropped on the table. It was then that the family realized that the entity could follow them out of the house. Gross and Playfair saw indentations in pillows and on the bed as though someone was lying there. Originally there was a suspicion that the spirit apparently was that of a 4-year-old child who had been smothered with a pillow by her father, maybe responsible for the incidents. Peggy had been given items of furniture from the house of the little girl when she moved into her property in Enfield. Peggy made sure to throw out any furniture belonging to the little girl's former house, but the activity continued. See, that's the thing, when it comes to when you basically have moved into a house that still has certain possessions from the previous owners, especially with someone who had died in the house, there's always that constant belief that sometimes spirits will only follow people or do whatever the case if there's a certain item that they're attached to. And in fact, that's true. That does happen on numerous occasions, but that's not always the case. Just because you destroy certain possessions of the house of what was once the previous victim's possessions, that doesn't always mean, for the most part, that whatever is haunting the house is completely gone. It could still function even without those items, because perhaps maybe unlike some other entities that are more attached to some of these items, there might be entities out there that could care. Mort, you said I froze? It doesn't look like. Okay, I'm looking right now. Oh, looks normal to me. I don't know where you said how it was frozen. Yeah, there's just certain things where some of these entities don't care about certain possessions. It doesn't need something to be staying in the earthly realm. So the fact that this poltergeist was still following the family even after the possessions were destroyed, even if it was the supposed 4-year-old child, it didn't seem to care. Now, undoubtedly, Janet was the center of the activity, which is common in poltergeist cases, which predominantly affect girls and young women, which is something I recently had discovered. I thought they usually affected teenagers of both genders. Maybe I'm just left behind on certain things when it comes to poltergeists. See, I always have this issue with this word. I can't even say the damn thing. Piero Brovetto and Vera Maxia, who wrote a paper called Some Conjectures about the mechanism of poltergeist phenomenon, argued that children generate poltergeist activity by channeling energy into the quantum mechanical vacuum. Their paper postulates that although poltergeist activity has been reported all around the world and in different cultures, the one thing they all have in common is pubescent children or young women. The two physicists, hope I'm saying that right, believe that during puberty, a modification of the body happens, which involves various organs, and these changes create fluctuations in electron activity that can cause disturbances up to a few meters around the outside of the brain. They believe that the extra fluctuations triggered by the pubescent brain can enhance virtual particles around the person, which can increase the air pressure surrounding them, which could be responsible for moving objects. Of course, I think we all know what the term means, but I'll still throw it in anyway. The word poltergeist is derived from the German words poltern, which means to crash or bang about, and Geist, which means mind, ghost, or spirit. and the earliest reports of poltergeist activity date back to 530 AD. A study of 500 cases carried out by parapsychologists Alan Galt and Tony Cornell found that poltergeist activity involved the movement of small objects with about 64%, followed by rapping sounds, which is 48%, and the movement of large objects and such as tables and chairs, which is only about 36%. See, again, there were going to be pictures in this, so I just didn't have enough time to really put the photos in. Many of the witnesses to the haunting described hearing hollow knocks that were coming from all parts of the house. What differentiates a poltergeist knock from a human one is the difference in acoustic sound waves. When a human knocks on a surface, there is a full amplitude of sound which tapers off. A poltergeist rap starts quietly before becoming louder and then fading away in a similar waveform to an earthquake. According to Dr. Barry Calvin, a polyurethane technologist who carries out experimental psychical research, poltergeist sound signatures cannot be reproduced. The Hodgson house, in this case, was not a happy one. It was not a happy one when the activity started, and it is commonly believed that poltergeist activity tends to start after major trauma or a life event. In the case of the Hodgsons, their father had abandoned them for a younger woman, and the family were left struggling in its poverty. The two girls, Margaret and Janet, didn't have a good relationship with their father and were afraid of him. The youngest child, Billy, wasn't with the family because of behavioral problems and was in a boarding school. William Roll, a parapsychologist who studied many U.S. poltergeist events, noticed a tendency for the person at the center of activity to exhibit symptoms of repressed anger or distress. He believed that the haunting was due to the discharge of mental energy he dubbed recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK. He theorized that the person was involuntarily employing RSPK in order to let out their repressed feelings. There certainly seemed to be the case with Janet, who had a license to swear profusely and displayed increasingly aggressive behavior during the haunting. She would suddenly rush across the room and bash her head on the wall, and her family became concerned that she would kill herself. She would have fits of rage where she would shout and swear and would have to be physically restrained. Towards the end of November, a doctor was called to the house, and he administered 10 milligrams of Valium in order to sedate her. After being sedated, Janet levitated and landed on a radio where she was discovered by John, Peggy's brother. And this right here is another photo where they found her on the radio, apparently, which I think is also on top of a dresser. I don't know if that is John in the photo, but man, that's quite a certainly something you don't see every day. That's for sure. It's a very, very creepy photo indeed. Okay, is there someone messaging me? I keep hearing some noise. Hang on one second. Okay, I don't know what that is, but that was weird. Janet wasn't the only person affected by the poltergeist. Her mother claimed to know when events were about to take place, as she would get a headache, and Margaret at one point shared the same dreams. However, the activity always followed Janet. Apparitions started to appear, and a neighbor's brother saw a light about a foot tall burning in the Hodgson's window before fading away. Another neighbor and Peggy saw the same elderly woman in different windows independently of each other. Janet's brother Johnny saw an old man with big teeth staring at him. In all, see again, this is another kind of part of the repeating. It seems like it's repeating part of it. In all, it was believed that around 15 different people saw some kind of supernatural entity during the haunting. A physicist called John Hasted, who strapped Janet to a Blundell couch, which is apparatus used to measure such anomalies, found that her weight increased in a way that couldn't be explained. He also observed a light bulb explode, which he considered a similar unexplainable incident. Another physicist called David Robertson attempted to secretly video Janet, but found it impossible to conceal the equipment. He saw several unexplainable incidents, however, such as a sideboard overturning, Janet levitating, and a cushion being transported to the roof, among other things. Oh, and I'm afraid that's actually pretty much all I have for right now. So, see, it's exactly what I expected, and as I said, the slideshow was going to have to end a little bit early. So yeah, I know it just seemed kind of all sudden. I do apologize that I had to kind of end it so soon. But let me just go back to the comments here, just so I could say I can give the shout outs. What's up, bro? Good to see you. Hey, Charles. Yeah, this definitely is live. Big old Tom, what's up? Hey, I got something to send you actually after I'm done with this show. Okay, so I guess I was fine then. And yes, Eric, yeah, yeah, usually young girls going through puberty, that could obviously be the case, like I just said about when it comes to the poltergeist activity. I don't know what this is. Say kicks. I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't know what that means. You may have to explain that for me, Eric. Sounds more like Tourette's. It might be. I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of hard to say. Like I said, if I had a little bit more time, I probably would have been able to put more detail in it. But because, again, since I was in such a tight schedule, I just wasn't able to get all of it in. So I kind of, I'm not proud of this, honestly. I mean, I definitely, and yes, Jill, you make a good point. Needs to cover the Conjuring and Fear fans too. Well, so what's going to happen now is obviously I'm going to end this in just a few minutes, just around because it's almost 6 o'clock. This was by far the shortest episode of Nick Files. Oh, okay, now I get it. Okay, it's like sci-fi but sidekicks. All right. All right, so since I'm going to be getting off in just about 5 minutes because it's about 5 to 6 now, the way how this is going to work, obviously, is as soon as I get off here, I'll immediately get back to work on fixing out the slideshow. I'm going to tweak it up, fix it up because there were a lot of repeats in certain parts of the slideshows. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. But I can definitely promise you that I can promise all of you guys that Nick Files will definitely be the slideshow will be a lot better. I'll have the pictures, I'll have the videos, I'll have more of the details and the info. Again, because I was on such a tight schedule, I just did not have enough time to really put it all together, which I was not happy about. I thought I did, but unfortunately, that was just not the case. So, I'll definitely come back bigger and stronger with Nick Files next week. Of course, I'll be back on here twice tomorrow for the for To the Grave and Back with Lois and Rosie. Lois actually just messaged me earlier. For some reason, we can't remember what we were going to be talking about tomorrow night. So that's kind of funny to think about. So either way, we'll have an interesting conversation. And then for Supernatural Talk tomorrow night, we're supposed to be talking with Joe, who runs a podcast up in Wisconsin. I still don't even remember the guy's last name. And then, like I said before, too, on Fear Fans, I'll also be on. We'll also be back on with the Frighteners, and also in case any of you guys want to tune in, because again, I know I'm ending this on a short note. All is not fully lost because it's almost 6 o'clock now. In about an hour, I'm actually going to be on another show. I'll be on as a guest on Kat Hobson's show, Paranormal Experience. What was that network called? In case you guys want to check it out, it's going to be on. Oh, that's what that noise is. Okay, it's coming from my Steam account. Okay, so the show I'll be on in just about an hour will be Paranormal Experience with Kat Hop. Excuse me, Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. That will be on WBHM, which is a radio station down in Birmingham, Alabama. It's going to be a great show. I've been on it before. In fact, I just came to that realization. It has now been almost 3 years that I had been on that show, so I've definitely been due for a visit. So I'm going to get off here just to take a little break. More importantly, I have to get off anyway because I just found out, because I was in such a rush of putting everything together, that my laptop's about to die. So I better hurry this up before it dies completely, because I don't. Yep, and I just got the notification. So I'm going to get off here. For those of you that want to see the show that I'll be on in about an hour, tell you what, I'm going to make this very quick. I'll even send the link for you guys so you guys can tune in shortly. So, okay, please don't walk. Please don't die yet. Don't die yet. Hang in there. Yep. Okay. All right. I see that you're. I know your battery's dying. All right. Okay, that's the link. I'm gonna get off here right now because this could die in any second. I'll see some of you guys hopefully within an hour, and you guys all have a great night. Again, I'm sorry that I kind of rushed things with a slideshow for certain things. I mean, putting this together, but it'll be a lot better next week. Thanks again. You guys all have